On Ask a Shrink today, I want to talk about feeling in a bigger and deeper way. Hang on. Feelings are so important. We're born with all kinds of complicated levels of feelings. They start at infancy and they continue through our whole life, and yet people try to push them away their whole life. And it never works because it's inherently who we are. We're designed to have feelings. For those of you who follow my videos, you know I talk about feelings a lot. I point out that we need to feel our feelings because that's how we grow and blossom as a human being, but also because when we push them away, we think we're sort of getting away with something, we're doing something kind of good. Like, oh, I'm over that. That happened 10 years ago. That happened 20 years ago. I don't want to look at that. So then we think we're pushing the feelings away, like, boy, I escaped that one. But it doesn't work that way. Feelings come back and haunt us no matter what. So that means, yes, you may be in denial for 5, 10, 15 years or something, but down the road, maybe you're clinically depressed. Why don't I have many feelings about anything? Well, it's because you push the good feelings and the bad feelings away at the same time. Or why am I having panic attacks? I don't get it. I'm not under any stress. Or why am I anxious all the time? Well, what's going on here? Or why do I have explosive volcanic anger with my family? Well, I can name 100 more symptoms, but it all ties in on some level to wanting to numb feelings. It just doesn't work to try to push them away. We're going to pay a big price. I know for myself, when I was younger, mostly my teenagers, when I really tried to push feelings away, I simply went to my head. I over-intellectualized, which then caused me to ruminate and get really caught in my head, which is not pleasant because you want to run away from yourself, but you can't run away from yourself because you are yourself. And then you're in this weird hamster wheel, so to speak, because you're trapped, because you're trying to push away something that comes natural, i.e. our feelings. So let's talk about feeling them in a bigger and deeper way. Give permission to your feelings. The more you work with them and let them in, the more they won't have this huge, scary power over you if in fact that's what you're experiencing. A lot of people experience that. I see that in my private practice. Clients don't want to go to a certain topic, a certain memory, a certain issue because they're worried that if they go there, they may want to intellectually go there, but they prevent themselves from going there because they're worried that the feelings are going to simply take them over and just sort of bring them down the rabbit hole and they're never going to get out. Well, it doesn't work that way. Ironically, the opposite is true. The more we give permission to feelings and feel them, then the big elephant in the room, so to speak, actually gets smaller. We become desensitized and we realize that this thing, these feelings that we think have so much power, really have no power at all. I mean, think about it. It's just something that blows through you. It's a wave. There's nothing tangible there. It's not going to come in and sort of cut you up or chop you up or something. There's nothing really there at all. It is, after all, just a feeling. And think of all the feelings you may have in a given day when you're allowing yourself to have feelings. We can have hundreds of them. They come and they go. So then we try to block certain ones that tie in perhaps to a bad memory. Well, it doesn't work that way. We can't just choose this memory over here and say, I'm going to block that because of what I just said. They kind of come and go all times during the day. And if you're trying to block it, it'll sneak up in some other way, perhaps even a somatic disorder. That's when people swear they're having some sort of physical ailment. And it actually may turn into a physical ailment in terms of some form of cancer, perhaps. Some ache or pain that just absolutely will not go away, but you've been to the doctor. You've had an MRI, there's nothing really there, but it all ties into your emotions and your feelings. And of course, for the cancer, then it's a little too late because now you have the cancer. But if in fact it's a somatic issue related to the repression of feelings, then that could have been prevented if you'll simply begin working with feelings. The more you begin working with it on that level, the more it will begin to diminish and pass. And then the second step is to try to understand where that's coming from. Oftentimes, that's what people do in therapy. You want to look for the underlying reason. If you're not willing to look at the underlying reason, it may just keep coming up and up and up. So, for example, your mom abandoned the family when you were 8 years old. You and your siblings were left alone with your father, but your father worked like 12 hours a day. It was horrible. Those years were tough. You never saw mom again for maybe 2, 3, 4 years. Those memories are hard. You don't want to go there. You're now 30 years old and you don't want to reflect on that, but you've blocked the feelings. And so now as an adult, maybe you're having trouble with intimacy, being vulnerable in a relationship. You're afraid to communicate because maybe there's a lot of anger there. And if you get on a certain subject, maybe there's going to be volcanic anger related to what your mom did. Maybe you don't trust women in general. Oh no, I can't get close to a woman here because, after all, it's representing what your mom did to you. That was done to you by a female. And so now, without knowing it, if you don't explore the underlying feelings, you're attributing what your mom did to most females out there, which of course is not going to be helpful in our life. So begin practicing letting your feelings up in a bigger and deeper way. And if they're uncomfortable, simply tolerate them. The T word, right? You just want to tolerate it. I love that word because it doesn't imply you're trying to make it go away. It doesn't imply you're trying to minimize it. But it also doesn't imply that you love it. You may not like it at all, but you're just tolerating it because that's the way to work with feelings. And then we can examine it in a more objective way, let it sit there like, I bet this ties into the fact that my grandfather used to abuse me as a child. Or whatever it is. It doesn't have to necessarily be childhood trauma. Quite often it is. But it could be anything, but you want to try to understand what that anything is. But after a while, then you even begin to be able to understand or empathize with others' feelings, and that actually makes us rich and helps us grow. Because we're all human after all anyhow, right? We all have the same feelings. Why not be able to connect on that level, especially with your significant other? You want to know what she or he is feeling. You can empathize. It makes you closer, it bonds you together when you're able to understand others' feelings. But you have to start with your own first. And there's so many ways that we deal with feelings. There's a feeling in the pit of your stomach, your heart is racing, or if it's a joyous feeling, you're just elated and you're beaming somehow. So we actually feel our feelings physically. Behaviors are more important than feelings, you may hear, but it doesn't work that way really. We're not robots. Yes, we have to accomplish certain behaviors, let's say at the workplace, of course. But if you have a boss who's just entirely focused on behaviors and the person inside with a feeling is not feeling validated or heard, or they're not able to share anger with their boss about the fact that maybe they think they should be getting a raise and they didn't get the raise, so now they're keeping that in, which is now perhaps affecting their ability to do a good job at work. And maybe they don't want to do a good job at work anymore. Maybe they're being passive aggressive because they weren't allowed to share with the boss their real feelings about the anger. And then on top of that, by keeping the anger in, that may be a person later that has a somatic symptom because they're so tense because they're keeping so much in. So we can see how it spider webs once we start to keep feelings in. But with the focus on behavior, many people think like I have no choice. So be aware if you're a parent, are you raising your child this way? More focused on the behavior? Yes, behaviors are important, but are you giving equal time and attention to the feelings? Are you helping them share their feelings? Are they able to name their feelings? Are you as a parent able to name your feelings? What feelings do you have? During the course of the day, can you name 10 feelings that you're having? If you can't do that, if you struggle with that, then you really need to pay attention to your feelings and begin playing around with them, naming them. Many times I have clients in session that are not able to name a feeling. They've just described something very traumatic. Maybe they witnessed their dad being killed in a traffic accident right in front of them. They'll tell the therapist the story, and then you see a lack of reaction and a flat affect. So the client is sitting there with a flat affect after they've shared this horrendous story. And then a therapist may say to them, I notice you're not having much of a reaction emotionally. Tell me what feelings you're having. And the client will just sit there and, nothing really. I feel numb. And that's okay. That's where they're at. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not about being good or bad in terms of a judgment. It's just important to pay attention to that, because if you can't tap into raw feelings that we're made of, that we're born with, and you've blocked them all, then if you're feeling numb about this incident, for example, the client about the traffic accident, then he or she is feeling numb in other areas of their life. A lack of joy probably permeates this person's life, because you can't just numb off a part of your life and then have a lot of joy over here. It doesn't work that way. When we allow ourselves to feel some unpleasant feeling or sadness or grief over here, that actually ironically allows us to a lot of joy and happiness to come into our life, because it's the yin and the yang, right? It's the pendulum. We have to allow both to happen, and that's how we become enriched, happy human beings, and that comes from allowing ourselves to feel the unpleasant ones. And also with children especially, you have to remember that what motivates behaviors, if you're focused on behaviors, this can go for the workplace too, what motivates behaviors is actually comes from what the feelings are. So your boss may be very focused on your behavior or on somebody's behavior at the workplace. Well, they're not performing the way they should. Their behavior is not up to par here. Well, the behavior may not be up to par because the behavior is motivated by the underlying feelings. So that applies in all kind of areas of life. It's an important point to know. So allow yourself to feel your feelings in a bigger and deeper way. It's like peeling back the layers of an onion, and that's how we begin to feel fulfilled in our life. So please leave me some comments below. I'd love to hear how you handle feelings in your life. Please subscribe to my mental health YouTube channel if you like these kind of videos. And until next week, this is Brad Shore signing off from Ask a Shrink.